Hello students, this is the continuation of the chapter number 5, Footprints Without Feet by H.G. Wells. You will find this from your Supplementary English Reader, Footprints Without Feet. So in the first video, we had seen up to page number 28. So in this video, I'm going to continue the explanation of this story, the story about a scientist who is an invisible man. So we had done up to this much in the first video, that is Griffin, the scientist or the invisible man. He attacked the shopkeeper from behind and he also robbed him all the money that he could find, and after that he ran away from that very place. So Griffin the scientist is a brilliant scientist, but he was a lawless person, a person who does not follow the law. Okay, now let's see the next. He took a train to the village of Epping, where he booked 2 rooms at the local inn. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was, in any case, an unusual event. A stranger of such uncommon appearance set all tongues wagging. Mrs. Hall, the landlord's wife, made every effort to be friendly, but Griffin had no desire to talk and told her, "My reason for coming to Epping is a desire for solitude. I do not wish to be disturbed in my work. Besides, an accident has affected my face." Satisfied that her case was an eccentric scientist, and in view of the fact that he had paid her in advance, Mrs. Hall was prepared to excuse his strange habits and irritable temper. But the stolen money did not last long, and presently Griffin had to admit that he had no more ready cash. He pretended, however, that he was expecting a check to arrive at any moment. So fleeing away or running away from that place after attacking the shopkeeper and stealing the money, all the money, he was eager to get away from that crowded London. He was in London and he wanted to go away from that London, and so he took a train to the village of Epping. He wanted to go to a village. The name of the village is Epping. So there he went and he booked 2 rooms at the local inn, local hotel, a small hotel. Okay, so the arrival of the stranger at that inn, especially in the winter season, it was an unusual event because that village, in that inn, hardly only few visitors or only few people, they come and stay there in that hotel, especially in a winter season. So it was an unusual event, and they found this stranger, that is Griffin the scientist, the invisible man, a very uncommon appearance. They said all tongues wagging. All tongues wagging means they were talking about that Griffin. They saw him in a very uncommon appearance. He wrapped his forehead, okay, he put a cap, he was dressed in such a way, okay, that he looks very uncommon. Okay, so the people, after seeing him, they talk about him. Even Mrs. Hall, that is the name of the landlord's wife, he also made every effort to be friendly with Griffin. But Griffin, the scientist, had no desire to talk, and so he told her that the only reason that he had come to Epping, that village, is he wanted to be alone, and that is why he had come there. And so since he wanted to stay alone, he don't want to wish anyone to come and disturb him in his work. And since they were looking at him, okay, he told to them that because he was putting a bandage, okay, on his face, and so he told to them that he had an accident, and because of that accident it has affected his face. So he told only up to that much. Okay, so the landlord's wife, she was somehow satisfied because though she found Griffin very strange. Eccentric scientist means strange, okay? She found very strange, but the scientist paid her in advance, and so she remained quiet. She excused his strange habits and irritable temper because she got all the money in advance. But the stolen money did not last long. We all know how Griffin got the money, right? So Griffin got the money by attacking the shopkeeper, right? So the stolen money did not last long, and so Griffin went and admit, okay, to the landlord's wife that at present he don't have any cash, ready cash. He had already finished, and he pretended means to show a false thing to be true, which was not true. He pretended that he was expecting a check to arrive at any moment. Now let's see the next. Shortly afterwards, a curious episode occurred. Very early in the morning, a clergyman and his wife were awakened by noises in the study. Creeping downstairs, they heard the chink of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. Without making any noise and with a poker grasped firmly in his hand, the clergyman flung open the door and said, "Surrender." So, very shortly, there was a very curious episode occurred. Something happened, okay? One incident there in the hotel, in the inn, okay? So early in the morning, a clergyman means a priest at a church, okay? So clergyman and his wife, they were awakened. They were sleeping and they were awakened by noises in the study room. So they crept downstairs, they went downstairs, and they heard the chink of money. Chink of money. Money means chink means the sound that is produced by the coins, or the coins of the coins, the money. Okay, so chink of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. Someone was taking away money from his desk, and so the clergyman and his wife, they went down there to see who is doing that. So clergyman, without making any noise, he took a poker. Poker means a metal rod, a rod which is made of metal with a handle, okay, used for putting and steering an open fire. Okay, when we sit nearby a fire, we use a special kind of rod, okay, which is made of metal to poke the fire, or to prod or to steer the open fire. Okay, so the clergyman also took that poker firmly, okay, in order to attack that person who was trying to steal his money. So clergyman holding that metal, okay, he flung open the door and he said, "Surrender." Now let's see in the next page. Then, to his amazement, he realized that the room appeared to be empty. He and his wife looked under the decks and behind the curtains and even up the chimney. There wasn't a sign of anybody, yet the decks had been opened and the housekeeping money was missing. "Extraordinary affair," the clergyman kept saying for the rest of the day. But it was not as extraordinary as the behavior of Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning. So when he got inside that room by opening the door, to his surprise, he realized that there was no one in that room. There was no one, okay, it was empty. So he and his wife, they looked under the decks, they behind the curtains and even up the chimney, but there wasn't a sign of anybody. Okay, but still then the decks, his decks where he had kept housekeeping money, the money where he had kept, okay, especially to use for his household, okay, for his household maintenance. So it was opened and the money was missing. So when he saw that, he exclaimed, "Extraordinary affair." Okay, this is unbelievable. That is what, because there was no one. Okay, just right now they heard some noises. Okay, they had gone at the right time, but there was no one. So he was so shocked. Okay, so the clergyman said, "Extraordinary affair. This is unbelievable," and he kept saying for the rest of the day. But it was not as extraordinary as the behavior of Mrs. Holmes, which means this is not just an extraordinary affair. The more extraordinary affair happened to Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning, in the same morning. Okay, now the landlord, now you see the next. The landlord and his wife were up very early and were surprised to see the scientist's door wide open. Usually it was shut and locked, and he was furious if anyone entered his room. The opportunity seemed too good to be missed. They peeped round the door, saw nobody, and decided to investigate. The bedclothes were called, showing that the scientist must have been up for some time, and stranger still, the clothes and bandages that he always wore were lying about the room. All of a sudden, Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her ear. A moment later, the head on the bedpost leaped up and dashed itself into her face. Then the bedroom chair became alive. Springing into the air, it charged straight at her, legs foremost. As she and her husband turned away in terror, the extraordinary chair pushed them both out of the room and then appeared to slam and lock the door after them. So this was another extraordinary affair, which means in the same morning, okay, the landlord and his wife, they were up very early, and they were surprised to see the scientist's door wide open, because other days, okay, he never keep his door open. Okay, he always shut and locked the door. Okay, but on that day in the morning, they were shocked to see the door opened. So he was furious. Now see, he means the scientist. The scientist always gets angry if anyone entered their room, and so he always shut the door and he locked the door from inside. But that morning it was open, and they were shocked to see that. So that was a very great opportunity for them to go and look into it. So they peeped around the door and they saw nobody and decided to investigate. Investigate means to find out the truth. So when they had gone inside, the landlord and his wife, the bedclothes were cold. The bedclothes were clothed, which means the scientists had already woken up from before. And the strange thing is that his clothes, the bandages that he puts on his face, they were all lying down the room, even the hat, okay, the cap. So all of a sudden, Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her, a sniff, someone breathing, okay, he heard a sound. We all know that is the invisible man, though they don't see anyone, but Griffin is an invisible man, and now he is invisible, and so Griffin might have gone near by her, and so she might have heard that breathing sound, okay, the breathing, okay, sniffing close to her ear. Then after that, a moment later, the hat which was kept on the bedpost, okay, it leaped up. Leaped up means it jumped up and it dashed itself into her face, which means the invisible man might be holding the gap and might have thrown towards her, right? But they don't see the man, okay, because he was invisible. So they were horrified. And the bedroom chair became alive. It started shaking and it sprang into the air, okay, straight at her, legs foremost. So she was so scared, and she and her husband, they turned away in terror because they were scared. Okay, so the extraordinary chair, the chair pushed them both out of the room and then appeared to slam. It closed, the door closed by itself and lock, okay, the door after them. So who is locking the door? Who is slamming the door? It is the invisible man, that is Griffin, the scientist, okay, but they didn't know that it was a Griffin. So they were scared and they were frightened and they ran away from that very room. Now let's see. Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs in hysteric. Okay, hysterics. She was convinced that the room was haunted by spirits and that the stranger had somehow caused this to enter into her furniture. Hysterics means wildly emotional. So Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs in a wild emotion. Okay, she was convinced that the room was haunted. She thought that yes, this room is haunted. There is evil spirits. Okay, that is what she thought, and that the stranger had somehow caused this to enter into her furniture, and so the stranger, okay, had somehow caused this to enter into her furniture, and so this house is, okay, this room is haunted. And so the stranger, who is the stranger? That is Griffin. The Griffin had somehow allowed, okay, the evil or the spirit to enter into her furniture. So all these are being done by the evil spirit. So this is what she felt, okay, she thought. So my poor mother used to sit in that chair, she moaned, to think it should rise up against me now. So she started crying, and she said she was crying, okay, mooned means cried, okay, and she, okay, said that that chair belongs to her poor mother. Her poor mother, when she was alive, she used to sit in that chair, and she feels that again the chair might rise up again, and it might come towards her, okay. So this is what she says. Now the next, the feeling among the neighbors was that the trouble was caused by witchcraft. But witchcraft or not, when news of the burglary at the clergy's home became known, the strange scientist was strongly suspected of having had a hand in it. Suspicion grew even stronger when he suddenly produced some ready cash, though he had admitted not long before that he had no money. So the feeling among the neighbors were also shocked, okay, about the two incident. But the neighbors, when they heard about that, they also thought that the trouble might be caused by witchcraft, black magic, okay. That is what they thought. But when the news of the burglary at the clergyman's home came to be known, then the strange scientist was strongly suspected of having had a hand in it. Had a hand in it means to steal, okay. They suspected that the stranger, the one who is in the inn, might have stolen. That is what they thought, and they suspected. Suspicion grew even stronger when he suddenly produced some ready cash. So don't you remember earlier he told, okay, first time when he came, he paid in advance, right? And later on he finished up everything, his money, okay? And then he told to the landowner's wife that he don't have any ready cash, right? And he is expecting a check. But now this he had got money, okay, in his hand. And so when he suddenly produced some ready cash, at that time he was seen by them, okay, and the landowner's wife also. And so suspicion grew even stronger because ready cash, he had money, okay, with him. So they suspected, oh, maybe this Griffin, okay, maybe this stranger had stolen the clergyman's money, okay. So that is what they suspected. So the village constable was secretly sent for. Instead of waiting for the constable, Mrs. Hall went to the scientist, who had somehow mysteriously appeared from his empty bedroom. So the village constable, that is police, okay, a village police constable was asked to come in that place in order to arrest the stranger. So instead of waiting the constable, this Mrs. Hall, that is the landowner's wife, he went to the scientist, and there he saw that the scientist mysteriously means she couldn't understand how he appeared, okay, because he appeared from his empty bedroom. She could not see anyone, but from there on the empty bedroom, okay, he had appeared, okay. So she was very much shocked to see him. Now next, I want to know what you have been doing to my chair upstairs, she demanded, and I want to know how it is you came out of an empty room and how you entered a locked room. So now he had more again suspicion towards this scientist, okay, and that is why she had called a constable, okay. But before the constable came, she herself went and she started questioning him. And she also told to him that she wanted to know, okay, what he had been doing with her chair upstairs. And she also wanted to know how he came out of an empty room and how he could come out from a locked room, because the room was locked from inside. So how he could come out from there, okay. So this is what the lady, that is the landowner's wife, told to Griffin. So we know the answer. The answer is that he is a an invisible man, right? Okay, now let's see. Okay, now let's see the next. You can see the picture there. Okay. Okay, there you can see in the middle, that is the scientist Griffin, headless. Okay, his head cannot be seen because he is taking out the bandages. You can see the constable also. Again, those were there. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, now the scientist was always quick-tempered. Now he became furious. You don't understand who or what I am, he shouted. Very well, I'll show you. Suddenly he threw off bandages, whiskers, spectacles, and even nose. It took him only a minute to do this. The horrified people in the bar found themselves staring at the headless man. So when the landowner's wife started asking him the questions, the scientist was a quick-tempered man. He became so angry that he told to the lady that she don't understand who he is and what he is. And so he shouted and he said that yes, he will show her who he is. Then after that, the scientist, that is Griffin, suddenly, he threw off the bandages and all the artificial, the props that he had used, okay? He removed everything. He removed even the artificial nose, the spectacles, whiskers, okay? And within a few minutes, the people, they were horrified. They were so scared. They were frightened to see him because they couldn't see his head. He became a headless man and they were staring at him, okay, looking at him because the head had already disappeared and they couldn't believe that. So Mr. Jeffers, that is the constable, he arrived, okay, he now arrived and was quite surprised to find that he had to arrest a man without a head. But Jeffers was not easily prevented from doing his duty. If a magistrate's warrant ordered a person's arrest, then the person had to be arrested with or without his head. So at that time, the constable, that is Jeffers, Mr. Jeffers, also arrived, and he was quite surprised to find out that the man whom he had to arrest was a man without a head. So Jeffers was not scared, okay, not horrified, but he was surprised. But since he was given an order, okay, it was a magistrate's warrant ordered to arrest the person, so he had to arrest him by any means, with head or without head. Okay, so he had to do his duty. So nothing can prevent him from doing his duty. That is what he thought, and he was ready to arrest the scientist, that is Griffin. There followed a remarkable scene as the policeman tried to get hold of a man who was becoming more and more invisible as he threw off one garment after another. Finally, a shirt flew into the air, and the constable found himself struggling with someone he could not see at all. So, after removing the bandages, this Griffin, that is the scientist, he began to remove all his clothes one by one. Okay, and that was the remarkable scene. Okay, so he threw off one garment after another, and finally he threw off his shirt into the air, and so he became invisible. So the constable, that is Mr. Jeffers, found himself struggling with someone whom he could not see or see at all. He was trying to erase a person whom he could not see. So will it be possible? No, right? It is impossible. But he was still trying. He was doing his duty. Some people tried to help him, but found themselves hit by blows that seemed to come from nowhere. So some people, those who were around, okay, there, they also tried to help him. But what happened to them? They found themselves hit by blows that seemed to come from nowhere. So they felt a punching, okay, a punching on their body, a punch on their face, okay, where from where it comes from, okay, they couldn't make out that. But we all know that was the invisible man, which means invisible man is still standing nearby them and he is punching them, okay, but they couldn't see. So some people, those who tried to help him, they found themselves hit by blows that seemed to come from nowhere. So in the end, Jeffers was knocked unconscious, and as he met a last attempt to hold on to the unseen scientist. So Mr. Jeffers, the constable, he tried his best. The last attempt that he had given, okay, to hold or to erase that unseen scientist, he got a punch, okay, a very hard punch that he felt unconscious. He was knocked down, okay, by the scientist, invisible man. There was nervous, excited cries of "Hold him!" But this was easier said than done. Griffin had shaken himself free, and no one knew where to lay hands on him. So everyone was crying out. They were nervousness, okay, and they were crying out, okay, hold him, which means everyone was shouting, okay, to get hold of this scientist, an invisible man. But this was easier only. It was easy to say hold him, but it was difficult. Okay, this is what it means. This was easier said than done. So it cannot be done. Okay, they cannot catch him, they cannot arrest him. But it is very easy for them to say hold him, but it is very difficult to really practically arrest that scientist, Griffin. Okay, so Griffin had shaken himself free. That means he shook off from there and he escaped. Okay, and no one knew where to lay hands on him because he was invisible. How to hold him? They couldn't hold him or they couldn't arrest him. Okay, and so from there, Griffin, the scientist who is an invisible, he escaped from that very place. He went away from there without being got by the constable or by the people. So earlier also he escaped, and this time also he escaped. So he is a brilliant scientist, but because of his discovery, okay, though he was a brilliant scientist, he is a lawless person and he is doing all this everywhere. Okay, and he always tried to go away, okay, or try to escape from some incident, one incident or the other, and he is a wanderer. He don't have a permanent place to stay. Okay, so this is the explanation of the story Footprints Without Feet, chapter 5, and this chapter is written by H.G. Wells. So I hope you have understood the lesson. Thank you so much, students.